Welcome to this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of Million Dollar Mastermind. We're going to be talking now with a great friend of mine, Kalpesh Patel. Hello, Kalpesh.
Hi, Larry.
And getting people to understand who you are, and you don't fit into a neat little box, but I will tell people that Kalpesh has a wide background of experiences in many areas and many countries. I mean, he's got a family comes out of India. He grew up in London. His family moved over to Gainesville. And from that, restarting, doing different businesses. They've been in the restaurant business. They've been in this business, that business. And you learn a lot of things, and especially if you do it well. And then Kalpesh is responsible for one of the major therapist programs that he came up with that helped me come back to life after my injury. I think I was up around the 300-pound level when I was about to die, and I had done good to be able to drive the 4 hours up to Gainesville without collapsing. And so I made that, it was so valuable. I made it part of my regular routine for years. And so Kalpesh and I had many conversations about life and success, winning and overcoming. And I thought I'd share some of those things with you, and we'll find more out about Kalpesh's background. But the great thing is he's just starting. This is the first year, I believe, of starting his own practice, cutting the ties with all the other organizations and affiliations, so he could get out and kind of blossom and do the things that you do when you get out on your own, to take your intellectual, your knowledge, your information, your value, and kind of follow your own instincts to get that out there in the marketplace with teaching, with courses and everything. And so he's got certifications and training and teaching. He's a trainer of he's an advanced practitioner and a trainer in Ortho-Bionomy. And those of y'all who, probably most of you, are not familiar with it, will give you an idea of this is some pretty esoteric areas. But just because, and that leads me in, Kalpesh, to what I said we were going to start with, that leads me into our opening thought, which just because you can't see these things, or just because you don't know where they are, doesn't mean that they don't matter. And there are things going on beneath the surface that have an amazing impact on your life and can't be fixed with a pill or surgery. And so anyway, that's the world that Kalpesh operates in. And he is, there's no way of measuring this, but he has insights that into how the body works and how to restore order with your organs and get things working. If you did not know, you would say it's magic, but he's got, like all things, you get involved in it because you have your own problems, and he forced himself to study it, and he found out he developed unique insights. And so he's able to fix, we'll talk about that, he's able to unravel mysteries that nobody else seemed to be able to fix with the body, and not excluding professional athletes and medical professionals, and that have go in there and they can prescribe, they can write their own prescription for any kind of pill, but they know that's not going to solve the problem. And so they wind up talking to Kalpesh. So we are ready to go, and we're going to open with this. Kalpesh and I were talking one day, and he said, I just get frustrated hearing people where the light bulbs start to go on in their mind with therapy and starting to get results. And they'll, like, with great wonder and amazement, they'll say, it's almost like, you know, these things are connected, you know. and you know, your mind, your body, your flow, you know, your weight, your diet, you know, your chemical thing, and how your organs function and your body makeup and your structure. It's kind of like, almost like they're connected, you know, the way they say it.
And I think I said something. I you know, one of my personal faults is that I can be quite facetious. And I think I said something like, it's almost like the root and the leaf are somehow connected magically.
Yeah, the root and the leaf, or the leaf and the tree. It's almost, yeah. How does that work? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But, when we have complex, you know, more than just about anybody else that is in the therapy universe, Kalpesh understands the complexity and the fact that there is a structure, there is an organization, and every piece of it matters. And when they things shut down, there's a backlog of things that go, cascade origami type effect of things.
Exactly. And I think the thing is that often there's sort of two camps. There are people that are willing to look at how complex things really are, but those people tend to stay in research because it takes all their brain power just to do all the complicated math. And then there are people that want to do interventions, and they kind of like, they can't keep looking at the big picture because it can just get overwhelming. So they're really looking for formulas, things that are going to be a wide net. And then, you know, if you're just using formulas in a wide net all the time, you're going to lose sight of the big picture after a while. It's just the nature of the beast, right? And so one of the things that I realized was sending sort of, people would end up getting funneled to me one way or the other, because they needed somebody to kind of still step back and look at the larger picture and be willing to struggle with the complexities of it all, because the simpler approach hadn't worked, right? So I used to make a joke that I'm usually the 8th person that you come and see, not the first or second, right? So all in terms of therapies or interventions, all the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. You know, as soon as you come to me, I expect to be reaching on my tippy toes and reaching for things, because the complicated stuff is all that's left, really, you know. And
if people where the implications of what we're just talking about here, that I'm the purpose of this podcast is to get people to be aware and to think, you know. Yes. And at the end of it, be determined to keep on looking if you haven't found the solution for whatever your problem is,
right?
In your relationship, in your body, in your fitness, in your business,
yes,
any area of your life. That what happens is, the first things you do when things go wrong is you look to the formulas, you know, and the people, you know, it's amazing to me, Kalpesh. They even brag about, if you want to be an expert in whatever subject, you get a blog, you know, you get a website and a blog, and you give away free information, and they'll even tell you, you don't even have to know anything about it. You can just hire writers, and you say, you know, on, you know, endurance running, or, you know, training for Ironman, you know, they'll go in there and all they'll do is they'll type that into Google, pull up a bunch of other articles, and they'll regurgitate that stuff out, and they have no clue. Guy he might weigh 500 pounds, but he's writing through this thing. You don't know. All you see is their byline, and a lot of times they'll take that byline and they'll put it underneath the guy who has the website. So he'll appear to be the expert, but like how you will lose weight, how you deal with this, relationship problems, how you're in your business and this, that, and the other. And that's really goes to the root of why I did this podcast is so people could actually hear from people who are dealing with these complex issues and have gone down and dug down deep and found solutions. And the funny thing is these solutions sound like easy answers if you don't know the implications in the application,
Sure. And hindsight is 2020, right? So it's like once you find the right solution and it fits well with the problem, then there's a simplicity to that can fool you into thinking, well, finding that was going to be just as simple as how it is to apply it. And, the hunting of it, I would say that one of the biggest factors for me, and it's when I teach people, I teach general sort of beginner level courses, but I also have mentees who are people that are already in practice, have some very successful practices, but they're mentees because they're interested in how I go about doing my analysis, and they want to learn the analytical method from me. And so these are very capable people, and so I have to come up with advice for them that's very rich in dynamic advice. I can't give them, again, I can't rely on a formula for advising people that are already quite capable, right?
Yeah,
I have to give them something really juicy. And one of the things that I say to them is, collect models. Don't fall back on one model. Don't fall back on two models. If a model works, recognize that that model is making a certain piece of reality easy to see. Right? The model makes something easier to zoom in on. But by definition, that means that it's cutting out other parts of the big picture.
Right.
So unless you have a collection of models, you're not going to have something comprehensive to look at.
Right.
And our mind is so limited, it can only focus on so much at a time. So models are really helpful because it kind of like pares things down for us. But I think that there's sort of an instinct in people that if they find a model that works, they feel beholden to that in some way emotionally, and then they'll just sort of like try to apply that model to everything, like they owe something to the model, like some sort of like they owe a loyalty to the model in some way or something.
Well, let's talk about, to kind of, this is going exactly the way I wanted it to go, because to kind of recapture what the direction we're going in is in we'll get on this. Every area of life, you have decisions you have to make, and you're presented with problems. And when you start to unravel that, you find out what seemed to be incredibly complex in the beginning. Once you finally work your way around to where you have the answer, now it seems to be incredibly obvious and simple.
Right.
The point is that as you go in, models are ways of solving a particular problem. Like in this situation, do this. And everybody who becomes highly functional in their specialty has systems, their systems, their plans, and just like a mechanic, and those models, those tools are just like a master mechanic has a big tool chest full of tools that he'll only use rarely when a certain model comes in with a certain problem and you can't get it with anything but this particular tool.
Right.
And
But it's no,
yeah. And
but
that's
it's no use the rest of the time, right?
right. No use the rest of it. But it's the same way, like if you're an attorney or a doctor, there's so much stuff to keep up with. That's why they have all the books. Now they have it online so much, but they used to have big walls of books behind their thing, is because inside those books were models, systems, plans, like in this situation, boom, 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 you know. And I've also said, like in leadership, like the great generals, the greatest generals are the ones with the most plans, the most, because they know in this situation, you know, early in the year, when the enemy comes in the morning, this, that, and the other, here's your op. And it's just like so many things in life, Kalpesh. Like if you're on a golf course, every shot can be different, unique. And like if you're in the sand trap on the side of the, you know, you're 50 yards out, you're 150 yards out, you're in the trap of the bunker on the side of the thing, you know, how you do that, how you line up. And I always had to get it down where it was like, okay, what are the 1, 2, 3 things I need? Now, if it's a long bunker shot, as I remember, I'll get corrected on this, but it's been a while since I played golf. It's like, you know, spread your legs, take an extra club, swing slow so you don't dive in and catch the club in the sand, and swing, you know, take a full swing, smooth through a 1, 2, 3 thing, you know, and just to kind of reset your head. Now, if you're putting, you got a long putt, short putt, a downhill putt, this, that, the other, you know, how you read the putt. It's like 1, 2, 3. First, check the grain, then check where the sun is, check if there's any water, because that will cause, you know, the grain to pull. You can't even tell, but the ball might roll uphill because there's a water feature, you know, over here, or a mountain, you know, it'll go to the mountain, you know. And so you get these things in, and all those are models. Those are systems, those are plans, little things for that little situation. But if you try and use the bunker model for every shot out there,
right,
you're going to be scoring in the hundreds, you know.
But there are people who will do it. They'll swear up and down it's the right thing to do because it performed so well for them at the bunker.
Right.
So they'll take that quality component, they'll take that quality marker being really high as somehow standing for truth, because it's a high quality marker, and they'll equate that with like a solidity somehow across circumstances.
Well, they'll equate it to results. You know, I follow the plan. You know,
right. But no, but I don't mean just that. They kind of, people go into absolute truths kind of mode.
Right. Well, the thing is that you have to go by results. You know, what we're talking about here is to go by results.
But they won't. The second result will be awful, and they'll just grip the plan harder.
And feel like it didn't do it right. They've got to do it again.
Yeah, so they'll try to find some way to still make the model fit. And so that's the thing that I'm trying to communicate to people who are smart. They want to achieve things. They have a certain degree of emotional and mental agility, and resilience. Well, what to do with all that agility and resilience? Like how do you use that emotional agility? Resilience is that every time you shift models, it's unsettling emotionally.
Right.
So those who are not emotionally resilient will avoid changing models simply because it's unstable, it's destabilizing, right? It's a little smack to your ego.
Well, the other thing is we get these models from, and this is taking off on your point, we'll get these things in our head. Let's say we learn a lot of this from a person.
Right.
You know, I follow Tony Robbins. I follow John Maxwell. You know, I got out of his book. I got so much out of it. Napoleon Hill. And then if you get, and that'll be good. That's good for junior high school level. You know, getting yourself disciplined and mentally organized. You know, they're the basics. That's a phase you go through in those things. But The high level stuff, it comes to when you go beyond simple, basic fundamentals.
Right.
And if you're holding fast, it's like, no, I'm going to go back and listen to those Tony tapes, John Maxwell tapes again, and I'm missing something,
Right.
It's like, no, you got it all. It's now time to go on, use that.
Exactly.
And move on. And maybe teach yourself, just observe. One thing you can do when there's in the absence of somebody, if you're in the wilderness and you've had the survival courses and it's just, you're still lost.
Yeah.
Well, you might have to figure something out yourself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You might have to try something that you haven't tried before and use that coconut on your shoulders. And because actually it's pretty gifted, there's a lot of things that are resourceful for you if you'll use it,
I mean, if somebody asks me for my credentials, Larry, more than any of my training, what I would quote to them is the number of hours I've spent observing.
Yeah.
Right. I would say, hey, I have close to 40 hours a week for 20 years of clinical observation. I go in the forest and I keep busy and I keep my eyes peeled and I make notes and I collect information and I go back to things I saw 3 years ago and go, now, there was a thing I saw that never did make sense then. Let me look at it again in light of what I've seen now and see if I can make sense of it now. Or, oh, I saw this before. What did I write down 5 years ago? Let me go find my notes, dig them out and see what I wrote about that. Oh, look at that. Well, yeah, So it's really, it's this and the observation that you're talking about. I feel like those are more substantial credentials for me than the training, any formal training that I've done. The training just helped me open the doors, get me in the door, as it were.
Right.
But the observation is really where I would say the biggest value for learning has been for me.
And a takeaway for people listening to that who go to school, you'll see the people who get their degrees and their masters in business and, doctorate or whatever. But, you need to know there's a lot of people with a doctorate that are driving trucks because they just can't get, there's a lot of people that go to medical school and get the certifications and they just cannot function on their own. And then they're working in the emergency room by the hour or whatever, and just a lot of attorneys go out there and work for, just become corporate lawyers because they just can't got the same degree as the big legal stars you hear about where I just got $400 an hour, $600 an hour, $1,000. It's whatever they can get away with. But if you want that guy, that's what you had to pay because they only have so many hours. Yeah. But he's got the same education as the guy that's looking for work. He's on salary, shuffling papers inside a corporation somewhere, going nowhere.
Yes.
So if you put the thing we're saying is don't put too much hope or confidence in the fact that you've got a ticket on the wall.
No, of course not. Yeah.
It's what you do. It's always comes down to what you do. And that's the clinical thing. You got to be clinical. This is not Kalpesh is a clinical operator. If you're going to be a leader, you're going to probably be 60, 80 hours a week thinking about.
Yes, exactly. You're thinking about it all the time,
thinking
right?
about it all. Yeah. If you're going to be elite in anything, whatever your field is, you're going to be you're going to get there by what you do and what you figure out. Yes. And you got to think about this thing, and you got to develop. And it's like I'll wrap this one up with this part with this. It's like they told me about classically trained musicians, and they said, you get the classically trained guy. He's used to working off a score, either a guitarist or a piano player or whatever, and you put them at the local bar where the local pros and guys get together and just jam and have fun. Right. He said they're walking on stilts, everything. And And one conclusion is these guys, they can only do it, they can only play that way. But the reality is that the guy who was a musician, had been in this world forever, told me, he says, the reality is they could improvise as well or better than anybody there. They just have never spent any time doing it. They spent their time, looking, playing that score, learning how to interpret that complex piece of music, and without error. And so it's a totally different thing to think on your feet and use that. But he said they can do it, they just haven't done it. And so what another takeaway for people is here: get yourself thinking on your feet. Start making, trying to figure things out for yourself. Make some decisions, and don't worry if you fall in your face a lot, because a lot of times, if we were honest, when we do fall on our face early in our career and you're tempted to say, I'm just not good enough or whatever, no, you just got to get better,
Well, so I appreciate you saying that, because that's exactly what I was going to come to, is that one thing I think that happens is that people don't take the time to calculate their margin of error. And so they sort of fear that there is no margin for error, and then they hem themselves in too tightly. And so I advise people to take your time and actually figure out how much error is acceptable in this circumstance, so that you know how much of a playing field you have. And then you can experiment with whatever it is that you're doing within these parameters that you've already figured out. And that gives you some chance to be creative with your solution. Because you're right, it's not open-ended. You can't just make any old level of flub, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't make any error. So I think figuring out what your margin of error is within whatever particular project you're in the moment, I think is a really critical piece. And I've said to my students, I said, look, there are areas in the body that we're going into and exploring to see what potentially could be changed. And you're worried that you should go in there and find a solution. And I said, first ask yourself, is anybody else even looking at this area? If no one else is even looking at this area, then you just going in there and connecting with that area is going to be a massive light bulb for this person.
Right.
So, maybe give yourself 3 sessions to actually figure out what the solution is going to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And that means that all you have to do is go in there and observe a lot. Just observe and take in information. Don't worry about a solution today, because no one else even opened this door.
And Tom's talking about opening the door. It's what we've done so far on this conversation. And I want to dig more into what it means to take the time to calculate your margin of error and how people would interpret that in their own life. And also get you to expand on how you go about solving the complex problems, because that's applicable to every area of your life. I mean,
absolutely.
My approach to winning that I learned from business, you wind up learning and using in every area of your life, and it becomes the way you operate. And so these things are so incredibly valuable because they can be applied in so many areas in your life, and they're not age dependent or physical ability. As long as you can think and you can talk and you can act, you can use these lessons and these systems and these methods the rest of life, wherever you want to use it. So thanks so much, Kalpesh.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely.
If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelementary.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.